right on in. I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. So, hey, everybody, this is Kurt Molly here with Mr. Jeff Schechter. We're both from Black Box Social Media. It's good to have you here. Hey, I have a really good friend, a mutual friend and colleague, Mr. Chris Mercer. We're going to introduce to you all here in just a little bit. So remember, we've really been talking for the last couple of weeks about our immersion process that we're working on right now. And it's an immersion training process where we're showing people how to compartmentalize a funnel. And what Shecky and I have been talking about is there are 4 keystones really to the perfect funnel. Now, this doesn't matter if you're just getting started out. This doesn't matter if you've been running traffic for a short time, a long time. It's really pretty universal skills. And those 4 things are, do you have a message, product, service that you can market and monetize? Shecky and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You can see some of the recordings for this. It was great insight. So once you identify, yeah, I got a product, service, or message that I can monetize, great. Then we're going to talk about who's your perfect customer. Well, Shecky and I spent a lot of time talking about this the last couple of weeks. And again, you can see these recordings on Blab, or you can see the recordings on YouTube. And if you're a member of Social Media and Genius Community, if you're a family member, we'll tell you more about that later. You get access to all these recordings and in-depth recordings. But the other thing that we covered last week is the 12-step process where we compartmentalize a funnel. So product, service, message, define the perfect avatar. We start talking about what's the perfect kind of funnel compartmentalized in a 12-step process. And number 4 is my favorite because it changed my life forever. And that's why we have Chris Mercer here. And really, you've been around here for a long time, which is amazing, is proof. So in the 4 pillars, you have product, service, message, got that. Identify your perfect customer, got that. Figure out your funnel, great. Funnel doesn't matter without proof. So let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Mercer and why we have him here, and we're talking about the keystone this week. So what's changed my life forever is realizing that I can have almost anything that I want with a simple math equation. Once I understand my funnel and I really understand my numbers and I'm confident in my numbers, there's a whole psychology around the fear, I can really start to scale my business. Well, if many of you may have heard, I've met Shecky at this place called the Internet Marketing Party. I met Chris Mercer at the same place called the Internet Marketing Party. Now, Chris is always this nice guy walking around, one of the nicest guys you'll meet. I know people always say that about other people, but they always say that about Mr. Mercer, or we just all call him Mercer. But what happens, I started asking around. I'm like, well, what do you do exactly? And he's had some different experience, and like all entrepreneurs. And what he really got known for is Google Analytics. There's no one else in the world, and I'll say this hands down, that knows Google Analytics like Mr. Mercer. Now, his company is really 100% referral only. I mean, you guys do some webinars. You'll do a breakout session with us this Wednesday. But the who's who, my clients, the who's who, when they're really starting to scale traffic. Now, I'm not talking about scaling traffic. I'm really talking about scaling traffic. I say, look, if you're going to spend the money, you're going to want to know exactly where those customers are coming from, how it's flowing, what it looks like. And I go, do you have Google Analytics set up? And 9 times out of 10, clients will tell me, I tried it years ago, it was complicated. Or I'm not really quite sure how it works. And I go, look, you're already spending the money. Remember, I always say never stop running traffic. You're always spending the money. You're already spending the money. So if you're already spending the money, get really smart so you know where the math is. So one night, Chris and I are sitting out on my balcony, and we're looking over the city. And I'll never forget this. He goes, Kurt, none of my clients lose money on Facebook. And I'm like, what? I'm like, sometimes things just don't work. And he goes, no, they just don't know their numbers. He goes, it always works once they know their numbers. And the clients that we've introduced Chris to, we're really scaling their business because they're confident and they know their numbers. So, Mr. Mercer, I just wanted to put you on a pedestal, just make sure everybody knows that you are world renowned, the best. It's an intro. So this is really big to live up to. So I just, first of all, wanted to appreciate you. Thank you for being here. We've talked about this for a very long time, and now you are here.
No, we have. I appreciate it, and it's an honor to be here, man. So I've learned as much as you say that you've learned from me. It goes both ways. I saw you from the start, right back when you're first getting your start, and he was just like this super motivated guy. Is kind of learning this thing called Facebook, and what you've grown it into, and the team and everybody around you. And kudos to the team. Like, you can see the people that you surround yourself with that are part of your team, I think also are a testament to that same work ethic. Everyone cares. They care a lot. And I've just never seen anybody more passionate about it. So half the time I'm a paying SMAG member.
That's true.
So I am a paying part of the family. It wasn't like a little buddy deal. I paid for it because it was worth it. And with my team, I'm constantly there like, just watch these videos because he's so excited. he's so excited about teaching this stuff. And I think it's awesome. So it goes both ways, man.
I mean, it's kind of like it's you. The reason that and just kind of for everybody else to know, I mean, really the reason that we do these, type of interviews is for a couple of different reasons. Is we wanted to be able to discuss the subject matter, right, of the 4 keystones. And when we call this immersion process, it's really over 90 days where we talk about these keystones, each part of the 12 parts of the funnel, how we tie all of this together really for predictable revenue. And I mean, I get super excited. I say this all the time, hey, I'm really excited to be talking about this today. And people are like, how? And I'm like, dude, for the places I get to travel, the friends I get to hang out with, the things that I get to do, it's a math equation. So if you really know your numbers, and Mercer's one of these people that really know their numbers, it's like you can have whatever you want, not to sound cheesy, but Shecky's seen it with a lot of our clients. Once you know your numbers in your funnel, huge. So to start off, Mr. Mercer, question for you. I know a little bit about your story, but I know you kind of tripped upon this analytics. You're in the website thing and some employment thing. Would you mind telling everybody just a little bit about yourself and how you got to the point of even getting into Google Analytics or tracking in the first place?
Yeah, I'll give you kind of like the 50,000 foot version and drill down. So the offline world, I was always very much sales and marketing. It's sort of my, started in radio as a disc jockey, believe it or not. People were like, oh, you should be DJing.
Was it really?
That's how I got started. Yes. But I moved into sales because salespeople make the money, right? And in learning sales, you learn metrics. You learn, okay, it's going to be X amount of people I have to talk to, and of those people, I'm going to close X amount to this next step. And you start measuring micro commitments of all the different steps and moving them through a funnel, essentially. And I've been doing this forever and moved into sales management and started running teams like that. So I was always very driven by the numbers, and I knew the power in numbers. I could make projections. I would know where I was going to be a year from now with a pretty reasonable probability. And I knew I was going to be because the numbers were there. And it's like you said, all you need to do is just you insert these numbers, you hit these numbers, you're going to get probably pretty close to this result. And that's magic, but it's also, it's magic, but it's simple. It's easy to replicate. You can teach it to other people, which is what, we obviously are working with now. So fast forward to online, we come down and see a friend of ours get married in Austin. And I was working a job in recruiting at the time, running a branch out there in New York. And we come down to see some friends in Austin get married, and they get married. And we're like, Austin's a really cool area. And we quite literally decided, my wife and I, that we're giving up our corporate jobs at that point and moving down to Austin to hang out with the rest of the entrepreneurs. And what the heck, we'll start an online business because that's the cool thing to do, right? So that's essentially what we did. I started training initially with training people how to use WordPress. So we did little WordPress training videos courses. And then from that moved into the development because that's kind of the natural progression of something like that. It's like, hey, would you just do this for me? And I remember being really excited because I was charging $500 for a membership site, that took me like 2.5 hours. And I was like, I can't believe these people paying me $500, But fast forward a year later, we got this outsourced teams to Philippines and they're $10,000 sites. But we started moving into analytics, right? Because again, I'm numbers driven. So I naturally moved toward that. I'm comfortable in that arena. So for us, a lot of other people were looking at analytics and just kind of looking at it like we did, which is like, oh, okay, that's the numbers we're seeing it. But then I started really digging into it and learning some things and opening some doors that other people just didn't know were there. And so we started showing people like how to set goals and trigger events and all these different things you can do with analytics to set it up. And then all of a sudden the conversation changed from, oh, can you move this button over here to go back to those goals? Let's talk about how do we do that? And then how do we make that better? And then split testing optimization and the whole conversion optimization thing just came forth from that. And all of a sudden it was, you know what? I talked to this guy a couple days ago. Why don't you talk to this guy, Mercer? He's got some interesting things to hear about analytics and referrals only for the last 3 years. We made a complete pivot into analytics and optimization, and it's been that way ever since.
Yeah, it's amazing because when I talk to entrepreneurs about their online marketing, this is now I'm just going to be completely honest with everybody watching the recording, right? So if you're watching live, you're going to be like, oh, that's why they do it. And if you're watching the recording, you're going to be like, oh, some of the secret behind the sauce. We can have a discussion for 10 seconds on this, but Shecky and I talked about this last week. Chris, out of all the clients that you deal with, how many clients of yours come to you and say, hey, look, I know 99% of my numbers. I just need a 0.5 or a 1%, just a little more insight, but I pretty much have a really good idea about my numbers. 3 months, 6 months, lifetime value of the customer, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. How often do you see those customers appear?
For us, it's not very often. not very often because they don't know. They don't have their measurements set up, but they think they have it set up. It's not quite set up right.
Yeah,
and there's a little bit to it. And with so many tools out there which I think is another thing, right? You've got all these different, you've got Google Analytics, Clicky, Metrics, Pickwick. I mean, all this other stuff that's out there to measure stuff. It can get confusing, right? And you've got Facebook, right? Facebook measures everything, and people think, oh, I'll just be able to use Facebook. But then you miss all the other insights that you can get with analytics. And that's where all these, the people that are coming to us, they might know that, okay, this particular ad is getting this, but they don't really know how much is necessarily mobile versus desktop, or what browsers they're using, or how to hyper segment some of the data. And when you start seeing that, you kind of go like, wow, okay, people in Toledo are really the ones, using desktop that are 45 and above, and using certain browsers. It's unbelievable what you will see, and then how you can measure that and get it back.
Can I interrupt for a minute? Chris, could it be also said that your clients typically, these are people with pretty decent ad budgets too. These are not, in other words, it's one thing to be confused as somebody who's, spending 20 or 30 bucks a day, but, your clients are spending, multi-thousands a day, and they still don't know this stuff. This was just so mind-blowing to me.
For that clarification.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because the way that I've explained this, that I do explain it to clients, is you've got multiple versions of the truth. So the Facebook ad platform is good a version of the truth. And then Google Analytics will give you a version of the truth. And then, CPV Labs, whatever all these guys that are spending millions of dollars are using, right? That's going to give you a version of the truth. And a lot of people just rely on that one little version of the truth. But what if that's wrong, right? And when you have all these different platforms, you'll see all of them saying, okay, yes, we're all agreeing that things are getting better. Great. But a lot of times you measure stuff and you start realizing, wow, Facebook says things are getting great. Analytics says things are going south. Something's up.
But is that a function of just the way that those analytics softwares are programmed? Is that why you're getting slightly different results?
Oh yeah. Because everything works slightly differently. So if somebody's got, somebody doesn't allow cookies, somebody else doesn't allow JavaScript. Sometimes where the pixels are physically placed, they're digitally placed in the page where they actually reside on the page. And if the page is loading up for somebody versus not loading up, so the pixel doesn't fire. So that stuff happens all the time. But they're always plus or minus, 10 to 20% on the way outside, that they should agree, for the most part. Now, if they don't, it's because, again, something's not quite set up right. And that's where that whole, we've got a company saying it's TBV, it's trust but verify. We are always highly skeptical of our data. We're always kind of like, oh, these are great results. Let's prove that. Let's assume they're not and prove it and look into the numbers to figure out if they really are good results. And when the numbers scream back, yes, they're good results, we're like, great, we got something we can scale.
So there's a couple of really important points that I want to go over here, Chris, that you said. This is really, really, really good. And then, Shecky, I know we'll get onto some of our talking points as well, too, that we outlay every week. I want to make sure people understood this. So first of all, the reason that we bring my expert friends on here and the reason we bring experts here is because they've seen lots of traffic. That doesn't mean it does not apply to you. That just means that Chris has seen hundreds or thousands, sometimes even millions of transactions. It just establishes a large probability. So even if you have 10 or 20 people visiting your site every single day, it's really important that you have the analytics. Now, you can't really start establishing probabilities until you start seeing, 100 people come by, 150, 200 people. But one of the things that Chris said is super important. What was I want to get this exact line. There are only, what did you say about truths? There's always a variation of the truth. You just got to figure out, what was that line that you used?
Every system has a variation of the truth.
Okay.
And then your job is to figure out the truth in the middle, but you're never, ever going to be able to measure that truth. You can only measure around it.
Because you said, for example, people will rely on Facebook tracking only. Now, the problem with that is Chris also said something. Your tracking can be off how much? What was that percentage that you gave?
10 to 20%, on the outside, but mostly it's at 10% is where we're trying to get to. But yeah,
let's just say 20%. 20% on 100 people or 20 people. 20% on 100,000 people. Do you know how off that could be? That's crazy. Yeah. So what I tell clients is when I'm talking to them, I had someone call me the other day and they were freaking out because they're like, Kurt, I'm seeing that there's leads coming in for this client. We're like, great, we're getting $3 leads. This is amazing. Client says they're getting $10 leads because that's what's showing in back of their data system. Yeah. And they're like, I don't understand Facebook. And I go, Facebook reps will even tell you it can be off to up to 20%. They even say up to 20%. So we tell all clients, look, and this is why we're doing the interview now, you have to have Google Analytics. Our 2016 plan all clients are going to be required to have Google Analytics. If we're going to spend over $1,000 a day, I am highly recommending that they work with Chris Mercer. The reason being is because once you start to scale traffic, you start looking at these probabilities. Someone like him that loves the numbers and wants to make sure that the data is true, that's really important. They want to make sure that the data is true. Then they can start seeing, as you start turning $1 into $1.01, $1 into $1.05. Yeah. Now you start seeing, like Chris said, okay, well, we have 1,000 visitors to our website in 2 days. Great. Wow, we got, let's just say, 50 buyers. And we found out that 40 of those buyers are in Texas. Why spend money advertising anywhere else when most of our buyers are in Texas? Let's work on Texas ads. So what ends up happening with Chris is he starts paying for himself rather quickly because the numbers are already there. People just don't know where to look. So Chris, important question for you. So now that again, my recommendation, 2015, everyone should have Google Analytics. Now, we have 3 different types of people that are with us in Social Media Ad Genius family. We like to say big ideas, beginners, intermediate, and genius. So a beginner, someone just set up a site. They're going to work with us a little bit, make sure it's Google compliant or it's best practices. When should someone start looking at just the basic Google Analytics setup? Is it 10 clicks a day, 20 clicks a day? When should they get that set up, in your opinion?
Right after you install WordPress, before your first post.
Okay.
Like, just do it at the beginning. Because here's why. It doesn't cost you anything, and it can't hurt you ever. And if you start becoming more familiar with the metrics in the beginning, in the very, very start, it's going to help you. If you start pushing it off, and again, you don't necessarily have to know everything 110%. That's not the goal. That's not what I'm saying at all. But get it on there. Get it on your site. Even if you're using a plugin, there's lots of different plugins you can use to at least get the basics up. And you can see people seeing your page views. But from day one, you should be able to see that. Because otherwise what will happen is you'll push it off. You'll start doing some Facebook ads and you'll be like, oh, great. What's analytics say? Oh, I didn't set up analytics. Okay, well, now you've got lost data. You can't ever get it back. Can't ever go back in time. So having it there from the very start, because it takes an extra minute, I mean, literally 60 seconds. Like, it's not hard at all to set that stuff up. So absolutely do that.
Now, do you happen to kind of put you on the spot, and you may or may not? I know that people can Google, YouTube videos of how to set it up, just logging in their Gmail address. I don't know if you ever put together a YouTube that was 30 seconds long. If you have any of that stuff on your public site, like if someone wants to get started and they feel, because I hear this all the time, and I know you may, man, it's just complicated. Have you looked at it? I just don't know. How easy is it to set up so they can at least feel that they're accomplishing to start that tracking process?
It is really easy. In fact, if you Google, there's something called, I believe it's Analytics Academy with Google, and it's Google's own courses. So Google creates these little free courses. I would go through and do that because they'll tell you, hey, here's where you go to sign up and copy. And it really is, you create an account like you would a Gmail account. They're going to give you a little piece of code. You take that piece of code, you put it on your site. With WordPress plugins, they're going to ask you for your Google Analytics account number, and they'll tell you exactly where to find that. And you just put in your account number on the plugin and hit save, and you're done. So it's actually really easy. And almost every WordPress theme that's out there, assuming we're using WordPress sites, but almost every WordPress theme that's out there has built-in section for analytics code. So they're made for this. So you're not going to have to do any sort of tweaking. This isn't something that an advanced developer has to play with. Your themes are built for this. Plugins are built for this. It's made for a beginner to do this. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's say we get the funnel set up.
Yep.
I'm just going to make it really easy, right? I have a landing page, I have a blog page or two,
yep,
an opt-in page, and then they're going to watch maybe a video. Then I could have a sales page, a cart page, right before they check out, and then a checkout page, right? Now, I'm not running really hardly any traffic right now. So let's just say, for example, so I don't need to know if 29 people bought in Kentucky because I don't even have one sale right now. So for just to track this basic stuff, are those some pretty easy steps just to set up some of at least that basic tracking before we get into some of the granular stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to start with something like that, when you've got your funnel set up, at the very least, and really what you did was perfect. You sort of broke it down, right, to the different steps. You break it down to the micro commitments, and then you look and say, okay, what can I track of these? And in this case, what can you track easily and simply? So the stuff that's the simplest to track would be an opt-in. So it's great. I opt in, I go to a certain thank you page. So you'll go to Google and you set up a goal that says every time somebody hits this destination page, this little thank you page, trigger that as a goal. Goal achieved, right? Next one might be the same thing, but for purchase. So you've got a different page for a purchase. That's a thank you. So now you can track how many people are opting in and how many people are purchasing. And just setting that stuff up, which again is not hard at all. Google's built for this. It's a very fairly simple interface to do all of that. When you have that set up, it opens up a whole world of opportunity for you to say, okay, here's the people from, when you start doing your Facebook ads again, here's people from Facebook or Twitter, if you're doing that, or Twitter or whatever, all this different stuff that's come through. Blab. We could technically put a link in the Blab that people could click on, and I would know that they came from a Blab. I mean, it's fascinating what you can do with analytics. And because you have those goals set up, it'll then tell me, of those people who came to your site, here's how many people opted in, or here's how many people purchased, which is brilliant.
So we have a question that came out of nowhere. I want to mention it's over. I think it's on that side. I want to point. A guy named Telman, I believe it's someone that we all know here, said, but why would I even want a website in the first place? Now, for just all the people watching this in the recordings, I'm actually going to be working with Telman right after this Blab on his launch. We're actually going to be talking about tracking. Isn't the internet dead? Telman's one of the most interesting, one of the most famous and infamous internet marketers over the last 15 years. So why do you use a website? We are going to be talking about tracking right after this. Yes, by the way, you can't make any money on the internet. The internet is dead. I heard so on Google.
Fad.
And somebody tweeted it out. So since it's on Twitter.
Isn't the answer like Shabambo or something like that?
Hey, honestly, I'll tell you this here real quick because I'm actually going to do an interview with Telman next week. But Telman's working on some really big things that over the course of 90 days he's going to be teaching. It's really all about email list building. We're actually going to do an interview. Shecky, next week we're going to be doing internet with internet's just a passing fad. Exactly. But we're actually going to interview Telman next week. So you guys make sure you turn in and listen to Telman because it's all about storytelling. Really what this comes down to that's really interesting, Chris, is people set up just their basic sales funnel so they can start to see people come in. I'll never forget where I first set up my first analytic account. And then about 30 days later, I don't know, I probably had like 200 website visitors or something like that. But I'm like, oh, I got 5 people from India, 6 people from Pakistan. I got like the information was interesting. And then we started taking a look at page visits, like, oh, people are visiting my page for 30 seconds or leaving after 10 seconds, or I don't even know what the hell that it really meant. And then I started meeting people like yourself that I started to understand analytics of, okay, I understand each part of my funnel. Like, what was my opt-in percentage, right? Like, how long were people staying on my website? Like, that's great. I mean, I'm a numbers person when it comes to ads, and I know that stuff's important, but I don't kind of geek out about that. But then I was at a conference, Powder Mountain, I've mentioned before. I'm at a conference, and I've talked to you about some ads, but I'm sitting there, and I'm listening to this guy from Australia, Mike Rhodes, brilliant. And he's like, oh, yeah. When you have analytics set up right on your site, Google's going to tell you everything. They're going to tell you the age range, the gender, the education level, where people live, where buyers are at. If they go to your blog page first, your other website, then they take a look at another blog page, then they typically make a buying decision. We can place ads that run here, retarget here and here. We can target people that are in market, which means they are looking actively to buy a fishing pole. So if you sell fishing poles, here's how you get the ad right in front of these people. And it's like, whoa, before it was how many people went to my website from how many different countries. Now, I mean, Chris, you work with people at a really high level, and I know we're going to do a breakout session about this as well too. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the numbers are really the proof in the pudding. So some people say, but I don't run enough traffic. I don't know how am I really going to be split testing? Like you said, start analytics right now.
Yep.
For you, when can you start reading it? Is it after 100 clicks? Is it 200 clicks? When do you start reading the information?
And when does it start becoming valid? So you can, in the beginning, right? You're starting a site. You've got your WordPress site up. You just get your first post. You're pretty much going to be seeing your visits, and that's pretty much it. But at that point, again, the answer is kind of the same. Get in there and get used to it. You can start looking right away. Now, the real question behind it is, okay, when can you really start interpreting it and making decisions off of that data? And that's where it would depend upon, every situation is slightly different, but it depends upon it. So for example, you've got a landing page with a VSL on it, and the VSL is 45 minutes long, and you see time on page is at 10 seconds, and you've got 100 visits. You don't need 1,000 visits to kind of go, okay, I've got probably a problem here. There's less, I've got 100 people that are on this page, but they're spending 10 seconds on the page. It's a VSL, it's 20 minutes, and the pitch doesn't drop for 15 minutes in or something. You've got an issue at that point. So pretty quickly you can see that. If it's something where you might have a smaller difference you're trying to measure. If it's not something so apparent, in other words, like maybe you look at the average, and some people spend a couple of seconds and some people spend 28 minutes, right? Well, at the beginning, the average is, let's say, 14 minutes. That might be something you take a look at. But with analytics, kind of to your point of these different countries, you would split it up and go, okay, let's look at this by country. And you might find out that there's just a lot of spam coming in from Pakistan that's trading at 0 or 1 or 2 seconds. Well, that's not real traffic anyway. So what happens with analytics, people that don't know this stuff, they will make a decision that says, okay, great, everyone must be spending 14 minutes. I got to readjust my entire video because no one's staying on long enough.
So
Meanwhile, it's really because there's a bunch of bot traffic that messed up the numbers. It's not a useful version of the truth. It was the truth. It was a version of the truth. It's not useful, though. And so you have to always be skeptical of the data and go and look and double check that.
This is really, really, really good. So, one of the things is when Shecky and I, we get together every single week. We talk about the content that we're going to roll out during this immersion training process we're going through. And we come up with the title, and really proof for me is really important because it eliminates fear. So Shecky and I talk about, we're like, okay, what's really important that we want to cover with Chris here? And we said, okay, the first time you're going to have a measurable step-by-step proven process to set up your funnel for short-term, long-term growth. Now, what I mean by that is we've really been spending time on the social media ad genius profit funnel. It really kind of came, and Chris, I was telling you this a little bit, we had beers one night. It almost kind of came as a premonition to me, meaning that a friend of mine asked, hey, Kurt, how do you really help people scale their businesses online? And I started thinking of through 2015, 2014, all the pitfalls we saw with students and clients. And really what it came down to was running ads is great, running to a landing page is great. However, not knowing your numbers usually causes fear why people don't follow up. They've already spent money in all the creatives, all the targeting, all the ads, all the launch pages, websites, whatever. And then they get all this traffic, which I know, Chris, you've seen before, and then they just stop. Yep. And I've always wondered, like, why in the hell do they stop? Like, they spent all this time building the race car, driving it halfway down the block, parking it, saying I didn't win any races, and just getting out. And it's like, wait a minute. So what happens is as Shecky and I are going over this, we really kind of figure out that it's the, hey, what's important? Well, you want to track everything for long-term growth. Yeah, but so what? Why? Well, it's the fear of the unknown often preventing us from moving forward. So we come in and we tell two stories, but you and I have a mutual story that I love to tell, which is there's these guys that we're working with. You and I have talked about them regularly, one of the clients we referred, right? And when we first started working with these guys, they were like, they had their first product launch. They did $135,000. It's great for your first one. Like that's great, decent numbers. And then they were scared as hell to spend $100 to $150 a day. I mean, we're really talking, $3,000 a month, and their product price point starts at $197, goes to $297, and starts moving. And these guys started to spend $400 or $500 a day. And I said, look, you guys are spending enough money right now. If you want to have a long-term, predictable, scalable business, you have to talk to Chris Mercer. You have to. You really have to know your numbers, because they were so nervous of running this $200 to $300 a day. Because what a lot of people will say when they have hope and not faith, right? When they have hope, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to spend $1,000. I hope that this works. If it doesn't, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to miss my car payment. I can't do this. And there's all this fear that starts to come up and completely prevents them from moving forward. But when people know their numbers, and I see them work with Chris, now we're talking about those guys today, and they're trying to figure out how we can spend $2,000 a day. $2,000 a day, that's $60,000 a month. They went from $1,500 to $2,000 a month to $60,000. It was all because Mercer showed them step by step where they weren't tracking their funnel and where their numbers really were. And I love talking to those guys now. We're talking about a 6-month difference. This is their first year, and I know you know this, but it's this is their first year that they've ever hit 7 figures, and it's because they have the confidence and they have the faith. Meaning the difference between hope and faith. I hear this every morning on one of the things I listen to. Hope is standing next to the fire, hoping I won't get burned. Faith is leaping over the fire, knowing it won't touch me. So, Mercer, really important question. When people start to scale, right? That's when analytics really starts to come in.
Yep.
So someone starts running some traffic. So again, I said we have 3 different sets of customers, beginner, intermediate, and genius. So beginner, we talked about, you said set it up right away. At least you're starting to track. We talked about people setting up their funnel, at least start to get it to track as it comes in. Now let's talk about intermediate. Let's say they're getting 100 clicks a day. They're starting to really take a look at data on that opt-in page, that landing page. What are some of the first things, if you were to stand back, from a 10,000 foot view, what are some of the first things that the intermediate level can start looking at as they're tracking out their funnel? Like, what are some of the important numbers that you would recommend they pay attention to?
Well, for sure, again, measuring micro commitments, right? And you're going to see there's a pattern here. It's like, not just because you're intermediate, you're going to wait until tracking all that. You should have done that before, but there's a lot of clients we work with that don't even have that stuff set up yet. There's no real goals that are set up of these micro commitments. So make sure that you're going back and doing that. And then it's kind of relates to the story before, where you want to start looking at your data and diving a little bit deeper into that. So if you see an average, and people use this all the time in analytics, it'll tell you, oh, the average time on page is this for this particular page. But it's like stats. It's, it's like lies, damn lies, and stats, like the 3 things. And so you can, depending on how you look at the numbers, it can be completely different numbers. So if you're making decisions off of these metrics, it's important that you go through and you question that. So things like, this is where you would take a look at, I would look at browsers. So looking at the browsers people are using so for example, big giant one was Internet Explorer for a long time. I'll give you one that's recent, Microsoft Edge. So Edge came out, we had a client where Microsoft Edge is the new browser. It's taken over with Windows 10. For those who are still PC people, as I am. I know, I have a lot of confused Mac people.
By the way, Shecky has converted over to a Mac. Just wanted to let you know, Mercer, you just lost another one.
Yet another one. Oh, it's all right.
I still have my Windows laptop sitting in the closet just in case.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, back up.
All right. Difference between faith and hope.
we had a client that had, when Edge was coming out, which is earlier this year, when Windows 10 was starting to make its appearance. As soon as Edge came out, we went through and we're testing in analytics, and we noticed pretty quickly that analytics people that are using Edge are not converting at a rate that's matching with Chrome, Firefox, Safari, right? Because you can see all these in analytics. And so you can look at this and compare it to your goals and say how many people are opting in from this or converting to a purchase from this. And we noticed that converting to a purchase just dropped. It was like nothing. We're like, okay, this is weird. So we go back in, and this is analytics that alerts this, right? So we go through with analytics and we go through and try to do some test purchases. The cart's not working. Cart doesn't work with Edge, because the cart was designed to say, allow these browsers to come through so that it could, for some spam thing, the developer built it like this. Edge is brand new. Edge never existed, right? Developer never tested it. And so our numbers alert us that there's an issue here. And it could have just been till somebody called up customer service. And a lot of people, that's how it is. Somebody called customer service and says, hey, I can't buy your stuff. And for every one person that took the time to call or email, hundreds already gone through.
Hundreds.
So analytics can preemptive that. And that's when you get into intermediate, start looking at that stuff, where they live, what browsers they're using. Are they mobile or are they desktop? Right. Even the pages of what they're using on mobile or desktop.
So there's a point I want to go with that. Bruce asked a brilliant question that I want to ask you with as well too. So Bruce asked, do you separate Google Analytics for website traffic from video watch time analytics?
So I think I'm going to answer this in the right way. So I don't separate out analytics. Analytics for me could have 5 different tools, and those tools combined give me my analytics. So my analytics is never separate that way, but I will measure different versions of the truth. So analytics will give me Google Analytics will give me its version of the truth. Wistia, then I'll go to Wistia and say, okay, Wistia, what are you saying is happening on that video? I might have events firing on the video back in analytics. So I'll take I'll use analytics to actually get a different view of the video, or Easy Video Suite, right? Or YouTube. Whatever the analytics are that I can get from that video, I will take whatever I can get. And I never, ever, ever say, okay, this is the one source. This is the truth. Doesn't exist. Truth is in the middle. I measure everything I possibly can around it to kind of get my best guesstimate. And then even then, I'm still skeptical, but I'm like, okay, we're going to make a marketing decision based on the fact that everything that I'm measuring says this video drop off is at a minute in, and just nobody's paying attention. So because all that stuff is there, I'm saying probabilities are the market's telling me that I'm not excited about this video. I need to do a different intro. Great. So I'm going to do a different intro, and I'm going to split test it, because then you set up the split testing with, again, pretty simple stuff using Visual Website Optimizer or something. You set up a split test. Now you can measure the result, and again, analytics comes into play again, you can measure the people who see video A versus video B, and then you can prove it. And now you'll see it in the numbers. So it's not just your gut saying, okay, great, this is a good thing to do. And people that make, like, this is just as an aside, but, and I still see marketers make this, even marketers that are making millions make this mistake. They will come up with a design, for example, an order form, and they'll replace the order form out and completely change it and then not split test it just because it looks cooler. Like they like the idea better, which is fine, but can get you in so much trouble because you won't find out until 8 weeks later that nobody's buying from your stuff anymore because they can't figure out how to use your fancy order form. Like you see all this stuff constantly. So let the metrics guide you.
So one thing is, Chris, I'm going to be doing less for our agency. We're going to be doing less launches over coming this next year. And what we really want to focus on is we're going to focus on driving more analytics and giving more data and driving more data for long-term customer gain, right? Instead of just wham, bam, let's kind of slam it in there and see how much money we can make. And my brother was just talking about it. And we have this whole process written out for a launch or for launches and whether they're small or large launches. And as we're going through it, we're talking about here's how many ads that we're going to create. And my brother, who runs a lot of these launches, he goes, let's not commit to making X amount of ads. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, it's so weird because so many people won't tell you clients what they don't like until they leave. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, I just saw this the other day. He goes, the client was a little emotional. We worked with them over the summer on a micro campaign for 3 months. He comes up to me recently. We haven't done business in 4 or 5 months and says, hey, look, like we have these company colors and this company logo. And that's not the colors that you ran in the ad. I don't really like that ad. But because they didn't have the data in place, my brother wasn't able to easily explain right away. He did when he pulled the data, but he's like, this ad that you didn't like was the one that made us all our money. So you didn't like the color. It made you all your money.
Yep.
So when you say you weren't happy with the service, you didn't like the color, but it made you all your money. What specifically, did you not like? But because he didn't have analytics properly set up, it took him a little bit longer to explain that story versus being able to share it instantaneously.
Yep.
So it's quite amazing. So Shecky, we had another
you were going to
another one here too.
I know that
Go ahead, Shecky.
One of the things that I love about analytics is it's a really clear separation from a lot of the other traditional advertising methods like TV and radio and things like this, because you get so much more data, like so much more. And I know, Kurt, that we've got a client here in Texas that kind of experienced, I guess you'd say, the beauty of really getting numbers laid out for them that was just so vastly different than what they were experiencing through traditional channels. And maybe you can elaborate on that.
There's two short stories I have of that. One, Shecky, that's local, and one that's down in the valley that that I'm going to talk about. One of them is someone that Mr. Mercer knows quite well as well too. Is some YouTube friends we have that have a fitness channel that's absolutely amazing, and they're like, "Look, here's our target market." And we really started digging in the numbers. Google Analytics said one numbers, but Facebook Insight gave us a little bit more insight to a different age range. So we just tested a little bit older age range, and it made a huge difference in sales. Because so many times we as product creators or developers, we're like, oh, I know what my audience is going to love. They're going to love this. Yeah. Well, we don't really know until we see the numbers and people vote with their clicks or their wallets. So what was interesting is we just found just a small little age range made a huge difference in adjustment, made a huge difference overall. Well, we also had another client. One of my other favorite stories is we have a client down south who has an educational school. I'll leave it at that. To protect the innocent, as Shecky likes to say. And basically, they came to us and they said they were spending $20,000 to $30,000 a month. Now, $20,000 to $30,000 a month locally down there in the valley, which is a smaller community, and basically what it was is billboards and homecoming, and then they have like the new, what is it called, what do all the kids in high school get? They get their yearbook, right? You can advertise the yearbook, you can advertise the high school football game. And I would ask him, and I go, you're spending this kind of money. What kind of results do you get per advertising medium? And they're like, what we know is if we don't spend the money, we don't have the attendance. And when we do spend the money, we seem to get the attendance. And I'm like, let's say you're spending $3,000 that gets you 90% of your business. And then you spend $40,000 or $37,000 on stuff that doesn't work. And they're like, That could be possible. So the thing that I love about online marketing is to go back to what Shecky says, is once we set up the school with Google Analytics, we started with Google, we can tell you exactly who's buying, regardless of what they feel is working or not. Tell you who's opting in, who's in your list. So, Chris, I mean, the other thing is let's talk about follow-up here for just a minute. Then I have a couple of closing questions for you. And by the way, everybody, please stay tuned. Shecky, if you don't mind, if you can put the link in here. Every single week, by the way, we do this, just kind of mention because I know people start taking off at the top of the hour. But Shecky, if you can put the link in there. Hey, every single Monday what we do, thanks, Nick, every single Monday what we do is we talk about a different subject in our immersion training that we're calling the Social Media Ad Genius Profit Funnel. And every single week what we're doing is we're compartmentalizing each part of the funnel, what it takes to build out literally the perfect funnel and to make it predictable. One of the keystones, one of the foundations that we're talking about today with Mr. Mercer, or Chris Mercer, is tracking and proof. So just as a recap, we're talking over the concepts, the importance of it, what Chris has seen as an overall experience, and how it can apply to beginner, intermediate, genius. Now, if you'd like to learn more on the breakout session, the breakout sessions are absolutely free, but Chris is going to dive into a much deeper webinar where he's going to go into more training, answering a lot of the questions that we've gone over, a lot of the key points that he's seen with his clients. So you can go ahead and register for that webinar right now. So every Monday we do a blab like this. Every Wednesday we do a breakout session, and all the recordings are available until Saturday at midnight. And if you're a member of the Social Media Ad Genius family, you get access to the blab recording, the breakout recordings, and then, of course, all the foundational recordings with Social Media Ad Genius, how to grow your ads online, and everything else as well, too. So I'll tell you more about the Social Media Ad Genius family right as we wrap up, but make sure that if you're really interested in Google Analytics, you want to understand more, you really understood the importance from Mr. Mercer here, you want to learn more from Mercer, he puts out a lot of great content, make sure you sign up for that Webby, you join us for the breakout session. I got a great question here from Bruce here real quick, is I know that 50% of my marketing doesn't work, I don't know which 50% I've done right, that's so perfect. So Chris, if you wouldn't mind breaking this down a little bit, again, I'm going to go back to the story we told. Sitting on my porch, you look at me and you're like, dude, all my clients make money on Facebook. They just don't know their numbers. How do you start to kind of sift that funnel out so you can start to see where those real numbers are? Now we're talking just a little bit more, again, beginner, intermediate, genius level. So someone spent some money. I know you can't go back in time, but how do you start figuring out going forward, make some smart decisions?
So going forward, it starts out starting with your traffic. So you have to tag your traffic. And Google will do its best to try to figure it out. Google will say, okay, I know they came from, like I say, using Facebook as an example. Google will say, I know they came from Facebook, but it was a call a referral, right? So it's like a third-party referral. It came from Facebook. Somewhere over there, that could have been me sharing your site, could have been you sharing your site, could have been you paying for an ad, who knows? But they came somewhere from that place back there. That's all Google will be able to tell you. But when you really get and again, it's for advanced, but again, this is not that hard. Half the battle is knowing this is possible. When you see like, okay, great, I need to use something called UTM tracking, and it's easy to set up. And when you start doing that and make this routine, so whenever you're generating traffic, you set up something that tags your traffic in analytics. Now you will know not only was it Facebook, it was Facebook, but it was Facebook. It was the ad with the blue-eyed puppy dog versus the kitten with a yellow border. Right? You will actually be able to track it down to that very specific ad. So now you've got Facebook telling you, here's what this ad did. Then you can go to analytics and say, okay, great. What's your version? What do you think happened? Right? Truth, yeah. And in doing this, the most important part, which is I think why I was emphasizing, get this stuff set up. The best time to start is now, right? Second best time, I guess, is yesterday. Best time is now. But let's just get it started now. But when you start doing that, you're training yourself as a marketer to make your decisions based on data, based on what the market's telling you, not your friend, not the guy at the last mastermind, not the Facebook group who's saying, oh, I'm never going to be your prospect, but I think you should use the red button. Who cares? Who cares what they say? The market's what's important. And the market will only tell you stuff through data, right? It's like Kurt was saying, through the clicks, through the purchases. That's how they tell you. So when you set all those stuff up, you can get that market data. And then you, like Kurt was saying back on the hope thing, just to reiterate off that, when I was first starting out in marketing, you would create an ebook and you put it out there and you'd like share it on Facebook and nobody would buy it. But like, great, I guess nobody wants my ebook. Like, that's what you thought. Like, they must hate the product because the ebook's bad. And then you start learning, well, actually, if I just changed it from download to let's get started on the button, all of a sudden conversion bump, right? And you start realizing, oh wait, this is just about who cares what I think? I don't want to try to gut it out. I don't want to try to take somebody's well-intentioned but meaningless advice. Let's go to the market. Let's see what the market says, and let's iterate based on what those market results are. And when you start doing that as a marketer, the whole idea, the emotion part of it kind of goes away because it's all based on the numbers. And you're like, hey, let's just test. Let's just figure it out. And then, like Kurt was saying, then you can start asking questions like, man, how do we get Facebook to take as much money as possible? And that thought opens up just a world of possibility when it comes to your pages and your funnels, because you're thinking differently now. And as opposed to like, oh, how do I get the most for this $20 I'm about to spend? It's a completely different mindset. And when you do that, you've got a completely different set of resources that are available to you. You're going to have different thoughts. And if you put it, the reliance on the metrics and the numbers, it allows that freedom to come forth. I think that's the biggest standpoint of that.
I love the way you phrase that. And it's interesting because I think there's a really good analogy. Like when you talk to people that do like trading stocks and day trading and stuff like that, the biggest issue for anybody in that sort of environment is to be able to take their own ego out of it and their own emotions out of it and go, can we just do this to be data driven? And what's so cool about this now is that there's so many things that you can find out about your customers and your sales funnel about what's working. Like you talk about, drilling down to just something as simple as like just changing the way a button looks on a buy page. It's like, wow, is that all it is? And like Kurt, what you were saying, the guy that didn't like the fact that the ad was purple and yellow instead of red and green. It's like, well, there's a guy that's thinking, emotionally and egotistically, right? And if the data was just presented in such a way, it's like, cool. It's just like, that to me is just so awesome. And that's what to me is like so exciting about online marketing is you can just know.
Yep.
Well, it's just, I mean, Shecky, I've shared the story a lot, and I know that Chris, you and I have talked about this a lot, and I know you deal with this every single day, but like, it amazes me when I start talking to entrepreneurs, and I want to figure out, and I've always found this has always worked great with my business. This is why we do these blabs. If I lead with value first, if I really figure out how can I drive as much value as possible, the money always follows.
Yep.
Always, 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 always. So I think about what can I really do of value for 2016 for all of our agency clients. Number one, hands down, it has to be Google Analytics. It has to be. Because Shecky, we do have to put this down. Please take this as a note. And I know Nick's listening as well too. What is your version of the truth for your funnel? What's your version of your truth for your numbers? Like, I love that. And here's the reason why. Like, Chris, we didn't even talk about this, but I love your language around this because many people know who follow me. I'm really sensitive on language because it predicts people's patterns, right? So you said what version of the truth? Because you can say, well, I kind of believe this. I kind of believe this. And somewhere in the middle is, okay, I can make a rational decision. Well, last week in our breakout session, one of the things that Shecky and I covered was fear and how to eliminate fear. And not a woo-woo is you can do anything that you want in the world, which I believe that you can anyway, but it all comes down to the numbers. What we said was, okay, look, you're going to get your information from somewhere, right? You're going to receive some kind of data, and you're going to receive some kind of frame around that data. Like, I learned about it from Fox News. It must be true because they're yelling at me wearing red. That must be true, right? Or, hey, I'm looking at Facebook. It must be true. But what you're saying is it could be, but I'm going to take a look at Google as well. I'm going to see what version of the truth is there. And then Shecky and I said, okay, look, step number 3 is if you look at this, you're going to tell yourself a story in your head, which could be, like you said, I don't know how I'm going to spend the money. It's $20. What's it going to get me? I don't know. What's it going to work out? I'm not really quite sure. But what's interesting, what you're saying is to overcome that fear, you say, wow, I kind of see these numbers over here. I can kind of see these numbers over here to start validating. And then you're able to start making a clear decision. And what was interesting that Shecky and I went over last week, it's like, look, if you can at least get to the point where you at least have enough data to make a decision, then all you have to do is figure out what happened, what can I do better next time, and repeat the process instead of what so many entrepreneurs do is sit there and go, I spent $1,000 and have no idea what just happened.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. And just to tack on to kind of put a tack on that branding story, right? Because we hear that a lot. It's kind of the brand stand because people have that issue. It's I don't want it to make it look like a direct response marketing page because they have a certain look and we're a brand and we're different. And there is definitely a decrease in conversions with most brands when they do that because they're putting in fancy colors and things get involved. But when you're measuring these things, at least you can go back to the client and say, okay, here's how much this is costing you to do this. Here's what we have. Here's what you have. Here's the difference in between. Now, it's fine you want brand standards, but is there a medium? Is there a way that we can move closer to this? I know you don't want to go to this extreme of, direct response necessarily with nothing, but can we keep those colors and just maybe incorporate them here in a background and, maybe change the font or maybe just decrease the logo a little bit so we can put some important stuff above the fold. I mean, you can have those conversations because you can measure it. And again, it's you and this other person now. It could be an adversarial relationship. Now it doesn't have to be because you're looking at the numbers. It's not me. It's the market. It's the numbers. You can prove it. There's no emotion involved. It's just, let's gather around the table and say, okay, so much. Can we move it a little bit? And we don't need to get to this direct response. That's totally cool. But can we pull it up just a little bit? And can you see a bump from that? And now that guy can go back to, or girl can go back to the manager and say, hey, look, I made these changes. Here's the impact I had. Right? Here's the measurable impact. We were doing this. We combined a little of this, lessened the logo, muted these colors down, whatever. Bam, instant, got a result from it, and we measured it. And that's awesome to be able to say, you can measure the impact. Like, that's great. Other people just get, warm and fuzzy feelings. We can measure it, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's just funny when people are like, my gut tells me that. Shecky says this all the time now in his language too, and I'm like, oh, that's cute. Did you test and verify it? Well, no, I never even tested it, but my friend's sister's uncle told me that it's not going to work, so I'm not going to try. And I'm like, that will never work as an entrepreneur online, because you heard this all the time, right? Hey, I went to a conference, I heard about this, and this. So I was talking to some lady on the phone the other day, and she goes, Kurt, a lot of people in my niche just don't like webinars. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to opt in, they're not going to show up, they're not going to listen to a webinar. You know what I mean? And again, I'm very particular in my language, and I go, no, I don't understand what you mean at all. She goes, well, people in my niche don't show up on a webinar. And I go, I've never found that true. Well, I mean, my friends have told me that. And I go, I've spent millions of dollars running things for webinars. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in your niche. She's like, I know, but it's not what people are telling me. And I go, whatever people are telling you is great. I'm just going to tell you what I've already tested and verified.
Yep.
And she was just kind of like, she just kind of looked at me and she's like, okay, let's kind of check this out. So a couple of kind of closing things here, because as we round the top of this. So remember, this is part of our overall immersion training process. And here we really talk about concepts, ideas. We've gone over beginner, intermediate, and some genius tips as well too. Really, the moral of the story is just start tracking. This isn't something that happens overnight, but I mean, even starting now, kind of one other small little plug is even starting now putting your Google Analytics in there. Chris will always say you can't go backwards in time, but at least you have the analytics so you can start breaking down moving forward. You just start to know your options, right? Yeah. A lot of people just don't know what you just don't know until you start kind of knowing your options. Now, as you start breaking down your traffic, you're going to be able to make more educated decisions. Ideally, if you're already, not even ideally, like you should be doing this already. If you're spending money on ads and you're having someone or yourself create the ads, you have the landing pages, you have the funnel, you have the product and service, you have to get Google Analytics. The main reason being is because you're going to want to have extension on that sales funnel. You're going to want to know, when are people opening up your emails? You're going to want to know, when are people visiting your video for how long? When they visit your video for X amount of time, are they moving over to your sales page? What does that information look like? But I'm telling you, once you have that information, it's powerful, and you can scale your business very quickly. Now, I'm not going to exaggerate. Like Chris, I'm not asking you to make up a story, but I know you and I run in a lot of really unusual circles. It is not uncommon where I have seen, and I know that you know these people well, they've been up to the party, where people have grown a business 10 million, 20 million, 100 million in a year because they know their Google Analytics, literally starting from very little.
Yep.
Because they know their numbers.
Yep.
Yeah, like, I'm kind of curious, Chris, for your clients, just kind of really, really quick, and I don't know if you have any numbers on this. Do you have any idea, like, what kind of growth do you typically see? If you've been working with someone for 6 months, right, and I don't know, they have average ad spend $1,000, let's just say, like, or do you see like 2 or 3% difference once you get tracking in place? You've seen a 10 to 20. I know it's hard to compare, but
yeah, it is. I mean, it's especially around quoting numbers. It's so, every client is so unique, because some can implement better than others. So knowing the numbers is one thing, but if you can't implement, then you're not going to grow. Like, we had a client who took their numbers and then started creating more and more funnels, because they went, okay, we can continue to optimize the existing funnel or just create 12 other ones that this market would also buy, right? Skyrocketed their business because they saw that in the numbers. They can measure this, and they obviously still do. So they grew incredibly fast, exponentially. And then we've had other clients who will just take that and then kind of tweak some stuff, but they don't really do anything past that. They want to tweak it. They want to maybe minimize lead costs, something like that. But they don't have the exponential growth that somebody like that does. And it's also different if you start with a business that's making 10 grand a month versus one that's doing 1.2 million a month, right? Just from a percentage standpoint. So it's a little over the road. But I can tell you that everybody that goes through the process and understands what their analytics is gets insights. And it's not the analytics. Like you're not there to get the analytics aren't the fun part. It's the insights. It's what the numbers tell you, right? And what the secrets that they can share. Things like time lag, which I'll just kind of cover because you mentioned it with people saying Facebook. Like you can measure in analytics when you spend your Facebook money or Twitter money to get them to opt in, and then you send them 3 or 4 emails, and like 8 weeks later they finally buy. Analytics will show you that journey. It'll show you that in the time lag report. You've got path to purchase where it'll show you all the different steps they went through. So you can see, okay, what's the path that really is that 80% of my business? And why put the money in all these other traffic sources that may or may not be working when this one's generating the most? And because I know that, now I'm going to double down on this particular traffic source. And again, it's up to you to take the action. The analytics won't do the work for you, but it gives you the insights. It makes it possible.
There's a couple of points I have with this, and I want to close this out. And Chris, I really appreciate your time here. One of the reasons that I personally got into internet marketing is because it was kind of an old sports analogy I give people. I used to love to wrestle, and the reason is because in football I had other teammates I had to depend on, which is great. But in baseball, teammates depend on. But wrestling or karate for me was one-on-one. Like that's it. I have no excuses. And when I got into the real estate niche, the thing is I love real estate, but you have buyers and sellers and buyers agents, sellers agents, title and escrow. And Chris, you bought in a house before, both you and Checky, like many of you know how it is. There's so many people that make decisions along the way. But when I got into paid Facebook traffic for my own products and services, it's not like investing in stock. Because I know, Checky, you kind of mentioned that earlier, right? Because investing in stock is what are these other employees at this other company going to do and make these other decisions that I'm betting on, I'm hoping that their decisions are good. My stuff with Google Analytics, it's my product. Yep. I have the data. I'm the only one who can affect the data. I can scale. I can create new products. I can create new web pages. It's almost like wrestling for me because I'm 100% accountable. So as long as I have the data, I'm not relying on a closing agent to perform. I'm not relying on a seller's agent to perform. If I have all the right data, I can make all my own decisions, and I don't have to wait on anybody else except my team members to get our content up and running. And I've never felt more liberated. I've never scaled my business faster. I mean, let's be completely honest. I don't think I knew that I didn't know how I was ever going to grow and scale to a 7-figure business or have multiple years when I have a 7-figure business, until I started understanding my numbers in Google Analytics. Like it is the thing that has absolutely unequivocally set me free as an entrepreneur. It's huge. So one last other thing here as we wrap this whole thing up. So just as a recap here, right here, remember every single Monday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time across the globe, we're on here on Blab, and we're going through really a 90-day immersion course process. Now, if people would like, I have a special link here I'm going to share here in just a couple of seconds, but let me just tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do, and where you can learn more next. First of all, if you did like what Mercer said in here, please make sure you give him some props, give him some high fives. Make sure you follow Mercer here on Blab. Now, the other thing is follow him on social media. Now, the other thing is we are going to have an upcoming breakout session. So what happens is every single week on Monday, we talk about concepts, ideas, beginner, intermediate, genius ideas, and then we really jump into the training. So, like at a conference where people have breakout sessions, this is exactly what it is. So it's a breakout session to where inside of this breakout session, we're really going to dive deep down where Chris is going to do some really good training. So essentially to register for that training, I know Checky put in a link here before. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste.
I'll put it in again.
I got it right here. Nick already put it on in,
yep.
Which is great. So they'll you be able to just register directly for the webinar where we're going to have Chris, where Chris is going to train. And if you're first time and you're seeing this for the very first time, you want to find out what we're really all about. Last week, we really covered what we're doing in this 90-day immersion process. I'll stick the link in there if you want to see the recording. But the number one thing that I want to make sure that you do is make sure that you sign up for the breakout session. I've spent a lot of time with Chris. He's absolutely brilliant. I promise you, you're going to learn a ton. Make sure it's absolutely free. Make sure you register. Now, when you register for that breakout session, of course, Chris is going to go over some really good tips, but he's also going to give you some additional information on how to work with him. So some stuff he does for agency, some stuff he does some coaching, some stuff he has some products and step-by-step videos. I encourage anybody who is inside the Social Media Ad Genius family to unequivocally make sure that you're going through Google Analytics. And if you don't know how to do it, make sure that you're going through Chris's content as well. So someone had asked in here, Chris, is, again, we encourage everybody to sign up for the breakout session. I don't know if you have an email or contact information. If someone had a question for you, wanted to get in touch with you, I don't know what your minimum level for a clientele is, but I want to get people in the breakout. But just, do you have an email address, or if someone has a question for you, what would be that next step? So you just put it in there.
I just popped it in there. So just Mercer at SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com, or you can visit the site at SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com. You know, we've got a list there. You can join, get some free stuff that we do every week too, called Workshop Wednesday. And then again, if you've any inquiries or people have questions, just feel free to email me and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll make it really easy. I mean, really, if you just jump on, again, register for that breakout session that we have coming up. It's going to be on Wednesday, and this time it's going to be a little bit different this week. It's going to be at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, because I know, Chris, that you have another a client meeting at 3. Also, on top of that, once we have the breakout session, remember, you're going to have all the recordings. All the recordings are going to be able to be available until Saturday at midnight. I'll get kind of my link straight one more time. I'll give you one more link, because I have a start here. So if you've never seen us before, you want to know more about what we're about, get under our email list, because every single week we have a new training. We're calling our 90-day immersion training, the Social Media Ad Genius Profit Funnel. Week by week, every Monday, we'll talk about concepts and tips. And on Wednesday, we have a breakout session. All of these are recorded and put back inside of a membership section called Social Media Ad Genius. And this is where we train people on how to advertise on Facebook marketing, really how to scale your traffic and how to use it strategically. We spent millions of dollars in Facebook ads, and the proof is in the pudding, is really why we brought Chris here to show where those numbers are proved out is as well too. Nick just told me the link that I put out, start here, isn't ready. There's some development, so I'm going to remove that. Whoops, sorry about that. Nick says stop sharing it. Sometimes I get really excited because Nick makes some really cool stuff, and I'm like, share this link. He's like,
that's how we make Nick work really fast.
Yeah. He's like, you some bitch. So sorry about that. We're actually going to create a page so when we have these, the people can just join right into our email list. They can jump on down, find our Blab recordings, and check us out as well too. So again, everybody, thank you very much for being here. Remember, one of the biggest compliments you can give us, post this out on Facebook, tweet it out on your Twitter, or follow Shecky, myself, Chris Mercer, over here on Blab as well. Give some high props. And again, we will see you every Monday, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. But this week, Wednesday, on the breakout session with Mr. Chris Mercer, we will see you 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Go ahead and click on that link right there. Webby, get you on our email list and make sure you show up for the training. Any other closing remarks, Shecky, or
I just want to say, Mercer, it's fun having you here. And I want to tell anybody that is, if you're doing anything at all and you're serious at all about your online marketing, you need to be on this breakout session Wednesday. So I know I'm going to, Chris, close your ears just for a minute, because I'm going to say really nice things about you. This guy right here, this guy right there, at least on my screen, he's the shit. He knows his stuff, and he has some just absolutely incredible clients and incredible insights. And he has a way of explaining things and bringing it down to an extremely simple level that anybody can understand, no matter what level they're at in their own marketing. So I want to strongly, it's a very, very special week this week. Yes, I know Kurt and I do a great job every week, but especially this week, I mean, Mercer is the man, and you need to be there, because you're going to gain some just tremendous insights, and you're going to get to hear things from a different perspective. So I'm very, very excited about it and looking forward to it greatly.
Mercer even got an endorsement from my brother, which runs a lot of campaigns with Mercer, and he says he has blown up their marketing results. Now, which is always interesting, and Shecky knows this, I don't know anybody that wants to blow up their house, their family, their car, but definitely blowing up their marketing skills. I guess according to him, that's a good thing.
That's what Steve likes to do. It's a Nebraska
You either blow it up or you crush it.
Oh, you crush it.
Right? You either blow it up or you crush it, I think.
Yeah. Let's not grow it or do anything
crush
like
my
that.
success, and then I want to blow it up. Makes lots of logical sense. My language is amazing. Thanks for sharing. By the way, we're actually going to have Steve on here. Steve's actually going to do a special training with us tomorrow, Shecky, for one of our insider trading. That didn't come out right. In one of our insider training groups, not insider trading.
Awesome.
That would never happen, especially on a recording. And I don't trade stock because honestly, I spend more money in ads than I do on stock because it's more of a guaranteed return for me.
So Steve's coming on as like the Wizard of Oz coming out from behind the curtain.
Hey, one last thing that's kind of interesting. I just kind of want to make a small mention. I'll never forget is when me and my brothers, we would hang out with my grandmother. She was 80-some years old. We'd take her to the casino, and we just have a ball hanging out with my grandmother. And she just loved hanging out at the casino, right? She spent $20 in penny or nickel slot machines. We just have a ball. And then as I got older, I still enjoyed it, even though after she passed away. And then I would still gamble every once in a while. It was still just kind of fun. And then once I got into this business and I really knew my numbers, I went to an event. I know that, Mercer, that you've gone to as well, which is the Affiliate Summit out in Vegas. I go out to the Affiliate Summit out in Vegas, and there are thousands of entrepreneurs out there and online marketers. And I'll never forget as I stand right next to the $100 slot machine, and I just see a guy just feed it. $500, $600, $700, $800, $900. Then he wins $300 and he gets excited and he starts putting in more money. And I start calculating through in my head and I'm like $900, $1,000. $1,000 turns into 250 opt-ins. 250 opt-ins turns into 6 buys. 6 buys turns into $1,500. Wow, why in the hell would I gamble anymore? Swear to you, it was the last time I ever gambled over $20. Like it was just one of those things where I had just kind of fun. And now it's just like, but I know the mathematical equation over here. This isn't even any fun. Like chance isn't fun when you know you put in $1 and you make $1.02. You just put in a whole bunch of money, and so I can't wait for the breakout session. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate you guys having me, and thanks for the kind words. Ideally, I'll be living up to it on Wednesday.
It'd be great.
But any questions anybody's got, like bring them for Wednesday so we can talk about them and kind of get some good stuff down. We'll have a little bit. If you're just starting out and not quite sure about this whole analytics thing, we'll have some stuff for you there. And if you've been doing it for a little while and you got everything kind of together and you want some advanced stuff, we can talk about some of that too. So
absolutely,
I'm going to help out however we can.
So I just posted the link in here again. Remember, if nothing else, sign up for that Webby. Even if you're not able to make the Webby this Wednesday or I like to really say more of a breakout session, because a Webby just kind of seems like it's just an online training. This is much more in depth and much more valuable. So by the way, if you register here for the upcoming webinar and you're not able to make it, we will send you out the recording and we'll keep you up to date of all these free trainings we're doing in the immersion process. So again, Shecky, thanks for being here. I appreciate you laying out the content. Mercer, thanks for spending an hour with us as well too. This is going to be great. Again, everybody, if you're already a part of the Social Media Ad Genius family, you'll find all the recordings back in the back of Social Media Ad Genius. If you want to know more about the Social Media Ad Genius family, looks like Tommy Pick just come in. Tommy Pick is an absolute amazing individual. We absolutely love Mr. Tommy Pick, and I just like to, Nick, you know me, I just like to be able to say his name online as well too. But hey, if you want to become part of the family, you can go ahead and check out that Profit Factory replay. Or I just always tell people we do have a special offer for the end of the year. But again, if you want to check out, find out more about who we are, what we do, and everything else, check out the breakout session check out the breakout session with us. So again, everybody, thank you very much for your time. Thanks, Shecky. Thanks, Mr. Mercer. I will see you all in the breakout session, 4 p.m. this upcoming Wednesday. Thanks, everybody.
See you there.
Have a great day. Bye.